All right, next question. How best to keep teams motivated while working remotely? And also how to recruit and onboard a junior advisor during these times?
Well, first of all, the tether, whether they're in the office or scattered remotely, is organization and structure, roles and responsibilities that are crystal clear, and process that's documented in a playbook based on the rule of three. In other words, you're not at the mercy of maverick talent. Nobody's left to their own devices. And as you would know, the more process-driven an enterprise is, it liberates everyone to find another gear of productivity and purpose and calling in their business. So as far as the junior advisor is concerned, make sure they know who they're, stay in their lane, know their role and responsibility. Nothing resides in their head. Everything's documented. They know exactly who it is they are suited for based on the ideal client profile. And you get to a point where geography, distance, remoteness, it doesn't even matter because everyone's process driven. There's no mystery in terms of who does what and when. And that, of course, is, as you know, a stepping stone to scalable growth as well, and other people adopting that process.
Yeah, great point, Duncan. Yeah, we have had some teams that have adopted that and really brought that to life.
Well, and to round it out, you're right, because they do have to implement that, but then there needs to be assessment. So you think about Tuckman's model, right? Forming, storming, norming, and performing. The performing part is based on cause and effect. There needs to be clear key performance indicators that are qualitative and quantitative. So have those defined and let the team member define those along with the leadership and put as much value on the qualitative. Okay, so great feedback from a client, that's qualitative. An introduction, that's quantitative. New business, quantitative, right? All these different things, just define what those KPIs are and then offer recognition, both in terms of praise and monetary recognition. Again, it goes right back to Maslow's. I mean, it's not a job. I mean, people know where they belong. I belong here. This is a calling. And I can become the best version of myself in this environment. That's what Tuckman's model, that's what the KPIs do when that's all bolstered by process and the rule of three.
All right, Duncan, and this next question is similar to the last. So how do you duplicate your efforts by building a team or a practice?
Yeah, so great question. And I'd like you to reimagine the whole fee-for-service world, right? The knowledge for profit professional. You think for a living, and you got to elevate beyond qualities and skills and intentions and make sure everything's transformed into an intellectual property, meaning it's documented. And be absolutely relentless in the repetition with your team that you are so far beyond an enterprise that is just consisting of great people and bench strength. The practice and the practice management, the procedures you've adopted, and the process that you've developed and refined, those are just as important as the people. So nothing resides in anyone's head. Everything's documented. Everything's proprietary. You want to monetize fully, professionalize and standardize everything. Don't just create this collection of a great team. You know, it's interesting. A couple of days ago, I did a consultation with a pretty substantial team. And one of their client-facing documents was a list of the team. And I said, I'd much rather see that be an org chart of roles and responsibilities tied to each team member and their contact information, and that's submitted to a client or put into their personal financial organizer. Because if your clients are business owners, professionals, and executives, they live in that world themselves. So just to compare and contrast, a listing of our team versus an org chart of our team and roles and responsibilities and contact information, which one is interpreted as being far more professional? That little tweak is profound.
All right, great, Duncan. And the next question, I think you'll like this one. What is the best book you've read in the last year?
Well, I attempted to start reading the Gulag Archipelago early in 2020, but it got derailed by all the disruptions. It's a meaty book, but it's such a phenomenal masterpiece. But what one, actually, I talked about this yesterday in the summit, would be Legacy by James Kerr. It's just a really great reminder around leadership, character, and what it all means to actually build a legacy and have an impact on other people's lives. So there you go.
Yeah, Duncan, I'm really looking forward to that book. I've got it on my list to listen to next on Audible. All right, so what is your best piece of advice for creating efficiencies within your business?
Efficiencies. When I think of, and you would know this because you interact with our clients too, I mean, the leaders at the highest level that have unlocked unlimited scalable growth, each of them have embraced the entrepreneurial paradox, which is, again, counterintuitive, but it states that you are truly successful and on the verge of greatness the day you've made yourself and everybody else obsolete, which ultimately means you're not at the mercy of maverick talent. It's not in people's heads. They don't wing it. Everything's documented. You know, you think about our always on template, always working on the business. I mean, we learned that from Michael Gerber in the E-Myth. Not working in the business, transacting, working on the business, building something, building advocacy, building enterprise value, building scalable growth. It's deliberate, it's intentional. Always on is a great step in terms of defining the fit process based on on-side, the onboarding process, ongoing service model, and onwards reaction to critical life events. When that's defined, roles and responsibilities don't change. The org chart, the people in the org chart might change or expand, but the roles and responsibilities are defined. So I would start with embracing the entrepreneurial paradox and then just methodically working in the direction of having everything standardized.
All right, number 16, given COVID's limiting of face-to-face, what is the best way to meet new prospects? Social media, ? Be specific, and what is the process?
Well, I'm always going to defer to the concept of advocacy and having people who are already convincing people on your behalf. But in the meantime, as you're waiting for all of that to come together, it's not even about finding new clients, it's being found. And if you watched Ted Jenkin, I'll tell you, he scratched the surface, but I would recommend you outsource the whole concept of mastery for LinkedIn and the whole digital world, because the people who have cracked that code, I mean, the fish are jumping in the boat. But why reinvent that wheel? I mean, HyperChat has a turnkey solution to help you put people in your funnel, in your pipeline. And so from advocacy, you think about the rule of 52. From a target marketing perspective, think about the rule of 52 and 6 degrees of separation just understanding that if you create a presence on LinkedIn and invite all of your clients to join your community on LinkedIn, and then you start looking at their second degree, your second degree, their first degree, well, those are some MVPs for you. And there's a very powerful methodology to get visibility in your second degree, their first degree. And HyperChat has figured that out. So I guess I'm taking the easy way out here, but I would just say maximize advocacy. That's the first pillar. Second pillar, maximize advocacy from service providers. Third pillar, target marketing. Call HyperChat. I mean, that's the easy answer.
Yeah, the team at HyperChat Social are fantastic. And Duncan, this next question is similar to the last, but how are financial advisors prospecting in this time of social distancing? Would like advice on hosting simultaneous in-person and virtual events.
Ironically, the most well-attended virtual events had very little to do with financial planning in the classic sense. They were all form related, especially family, occupation, recreation. The money events that got attention was next gen, education, and continuity, succession, family, investment, legacy, and bringing in guests whose clients are potential prospective clients of yours. But just be mindful of the relationship cycle, because Tyler, as you know, we have such an aversion for any form of salesmanship. We want your value to be bought, not sold. You're not convincing people to become your client. There are many fee-for-service professionals that are actually engaged in cold calling right now. And it's having some impact, but I just don't know if that's how you want to be perceived in the marketplace and if that's the right way to start a relationship. So remember the relationship cycle and respect that in terms of creating awareness, creating interest, creating trust, having people take action by asking them to ask for information, and then working them through your process, fast tracking them to advocacy, which creates more awareness. But disassociate from any form of chasing. Just be attractive to really attractive clients and activate advocacy.
All right, Duncan. So this advisor asks, how do you answer the question, do you have a minimum? Sometimes it's helpful to turn down some business, but other times it could be worthwhile.
Well, I get it. I mean, you want to be practical because, you've got a business to run, but you also want to be strategic based on the, compatibility, hassle factor, and long-term merit of the relationship. But bottom line is, if somebody asks you, what's your minimum? I think the best response to that is just simply say, that's a really interesting question. And I have to tell you that that's not really the way we think. That's how brokers think. Their ideal client has a minimum asset level. That's not us. We're not brokers. We're consultants. And we've learned that we can't be all things to all people. So yes, there needs to be an alignment of interest based on your needs now and in the future and our expertise and our process. But our ideal client and who we're suited for, it goes so much deeper than that. So I guess the net is we don't have a minimum, but we have an ideal client profile. We know exactly who we're suited for. It's not unlike, Tyler, when somebody says, will you lower your fees to get my business? And we say, well, again, we don't really do that. That's what brokers do. They're hunter-gatherers, right? They're trying to move the needle. That's not the way we think. There's a reason why we have lifelong clients. We have second and third generation clients. And we don't negotiate our value to try to win someone's business because it's not a transaction. So basically you're talking about your fee worthiness and comparing and contrasting yourself, as a consultant with a process versus a broker with an agenda to try to make a sale.
All right, here's an interesting one, Duncan. How do you turn a longtime family friend into a prospect?
Well, we've all heard the whole chestnut around mixing business with pleasure. So you have to really ask yourself, is this a good idea? First of all. Secondly, are you, they're not a prospect, they're a prospective client. And you have to ask yourself, does that even matter? That distinction, is that semantics? Well, I think it's different. And then you have to ask yourself, is it a good fit? And then you got to just, I think, embrace cause and effect and just detach from an expectation of an outcome and just make yourself available as a resource. As Randy Schwantz would say, if you want to get hired, someone's got to get fired. Which means that friend has got to come to his or her own conclusions that you are superior to their current provider. And they have to disassociate. They have to detach from that current provider. And they got to come to their own conclusions on that. So I think just make yourself available as a resource and let them know that part of your process is to sit down and pop the hood and do a risk assessment report or do a gap analysis or just be a sounding board with no expectation they need to become a client. And just simply say, we generally only accept new clients who are introduced to us, but, we obviously know each other. But if you want to talk about that, I'm led by you. I'll follow your lead. I think thematically what you're trying to convey to the world is, I don't need the money. This isn't, me trying to get a new client because I'm trying to drive my business. I mean, I love what I do. So be a resource, be a sounding board, take expectation off the table, and be at peace with the outcome. And let them convince you. You don't need to convince someone to become a client with a trial close and a closing technique. Let them sit down with you, let them pop the hood, let them interrupt you halfway through it and say, you know what, I've heard enough. I trust you. We have a great relationship. You obviously know what you're doing. You're way superior to my current provider. Just take me on. Let them convince you. And, just go from there.
All right, Duncan, this one's a really good one to end on. So how to make meaningful connections with other professionals, so accountants, realtors, lawyers, to create a great referral source.
Yeah, so a lot of people would call those influencers, right, centers of influence, which I've never been a big fan of. Tyler, you're so aware of our approach. Like every consultation we do with one of our clients, we say, let's just be an open kitchen here. Let's be proud of what we're talking about. Let's pretend there's a client listening in. So everything's about them. Client's the keystone to everything. So the net is you're not telling clients that, hey, we'll refer you out to other service providers. And then you go to other service providers and say, hey, let's get into this sort of quid pro quo two-way street. I'll refer to you, you refer to me, and we'll all be happy. That's not what this is about. You tell your clients, look, part of our process is to engage your other service providers into our approach so you have the complete picture. So part of our process is I will want to sit down and meet with your CPA and your attorney so that they're aware of what we're working on here and they can understand their role and where they place. And basically, so the client is the conduit to these other service providers, and they get to see you in action and how you conduct yourself and come to their own conclusions based on the contrast principle. And ultimately, any advocate wants to know how introducing someone to you will also ultimately come back to reflect on them. So your decorum, your code of conduct, can they trust you and trust you with their clients? They'll connect that dot. They'll see that it's accretive. But the bridge, if you expand your thinking and say, okay, I don't refer people out, I engage people in. And you use that language, that's stewardship. Now, as you know, we have clients who have created referral networks because many of their clients are business owners. They might have a client who's an architect or owns an engineering firm or is a veterinarian, or they've got some dentists or whatever they own an HVAC company, whatever the case may be. And they tell their clients, look, I'm very well connected in the community, and people call me and ask me if I know somebody in a specific sector. Well, part of our process is I make introductions. So if you ever need any of these services, just let me know. I'll make the introduction. And what's really powerful is if you tell a business owner, hey, look, when the need arises, I want to be able to introduce people to you. So how would you like me to describe you? So let your clients who are business owners, let other service providers describe themselves to you. And then the law of reciprocity will kick in. They'll then say, well, how would you like me to describe you to someone else? And you can just simply say, well, I appreciate that. And just go right to your people, your practice, and your process. Talk about your people, their sense of purpose, and how much they really enjoy and have great credentials. Talk about who your ideal client is. Talk about your client experience based on best practices, and talk about your process and what it does. And as you know, we have many of our clients that are now creating evergreen videos around what makes them different based on the premise, the framework of their people, their practice, and their process. So anyway, I've really enjoyed this interaction. And as you know, we're very active on LinkedIn, and people ask us questions all the time. In the meantime, while I'm waiting to get back on the road, if there's a question that anybody who's listening in has that we did not address, please either send it to us or chime in on LinkedIn, and we'd love to interact with you there. And if you want to know what it is we do and how we impact somebody's business and helps them achieve their goals, then just let us know, and we'll walk you through our process so you can imagine what it looks like to work with us. So anyway, good initiative, Tyler. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks, Duncan. And just once again, thank you everyone that attended the Foresight from 2020 E-Summit. We're looking at doing another one in the new year. So yeah, great initiative, and yeah, great Q&A today, Duncan.
Okay, thanks.